I remember the day I met him like it was yesterday. The college campus buzzed with the energy of a new semester, and there I was, an eager, bright-eyed student with a sketchbook tucked under my arm, dreaming of becoming a top-tier designer. Then I met Jake. He was all charm, loud ambitions, and endless talk about changing the world, one election at a time. We clicked instantly, two driven souls with nothing on our minds but the future. "Hey, you're in my intro to design class, right?" he called out, catching up with me on the walkway, his grin wide and confident. "Yeah, that's me. Just trying to make sense of it all," I replied, throwing in a playful edge. Jake laughed, effortlessly charming. "I get it. But hey, if you ever need a study buddy or someone to bounce ideas off, I'm your guy." That was Jake, brimming with confidence like he already had the world figured out. It was hard to remember sometimes that he was just a student, like me. From that moment on, it was us against the world. We spent long nights at coffee shops, surrounded by textbooks and doodles. Jake would ramble on about political theories while I sketched in the margins of my notes. We were a team, and in those moments, everything felt possible. "I'm telling you, Anita," Jake would say, eyes gleaming with ambition, "you'll be designing national galleries, and I'll be there. Maybe as governor, making sure the arts get the funding they deserve." "And what about the kids? White picket fence, maybe?" I teased, watching his expression. He'd wave a hand dismissively, grinning. "Nah, not for us. Who needs a fence when you can have the whole city?" It was romantic in that dreamy, reckless way only youth allows. We got married just before graduation, a small ceremony, just close friends and family. It wasn't just a wedding, it felt like the beginning of an adventure. After graduation, things moved fast. Jake went from an assistant to the governor's office to leading the Department of Parks and Recreation within a few years. His career was a constant ascent, every promotion a step towards something bigger. Jake was a natural, always shaking hands, kissing babies, and dazzling everyone in the spotlight. But at home, life felt different. "How was your day?" became the standard conversation starter. "Busy as hell. Meetings back to back. What about you, babe? How's the design world treating you?" He'd ask, his eyes already elsewhere, as if his mind never left work. I'd shrug, keeping it light. "Oh, just another day of picking colors and convincing clients I know best." Jake would laugh, though his eyes often looked distant. I understood. We were both hustling. That's what life was supposed to be, right? One evening, I came home, exhausted but exhilarated after landing a major deal that would put our department on the map. My laptop bag weighed heavy on my shoulder, and every muscle in my body ached. Jake was already home, a rare sight those days. I closed the Johnson account. The presentation went perfectly, I announced, eager to share the moment, hoping for a flicker of excitement. "That's nice, babe," Jake said without looking up, papers scattered across the living room. "Since you had a lighter day, could you make dinner?" "I'm swamped. Meetings all day, barely had time for lunch." I froze, my coat half off, his words echoing in my mind. Lighter day. "Jake, it was an 8-hour showdown to secure that deal. It's a huge win for us." He looked up with a shrug. "Yeah, but it's not like you're out there in the trenches, right? Picking colors and convincing people." The dismissiveness stung more than I expected. "It's a bit more than that, Jake. This was a major win." Sure, he muttered, already turning back to his papers. "But can you handle dinner?" "I'm beat." I stood there, feeling the thrill of my success dissolve under the weight of his indifference. As the weeks passed, the pattern continued. I climbed the ladder at work, each promotion accompanied by more responsibility and more income. Then one day, I realized my salary had surpassed Jake's. The achievement left me with mixed feelings. I wanted to share the news with him, but I hesitated, sensing how fragile things had become. Over dinner one night, I tried to broach the topic lightly. "With the new accounts I brought in, it looks like I might out-earn you this year. Crazy, huh?" Jake set his fork down, his expression unreadable. "Really? That's how you're bringing it up?" I frowned, confused by his tone. "What do you mean? It's good news. It means we're both doing well." Jake's eyes darkened. "It's not we, Anita. It's you. And now I've got to step up, or people will think I can't provide." I reached across the table, hoping to bridge the distance his words had created. "Jake, it's not a competition. It's our money for our future." He pulled his hand back, shaking his head. "It's not that simple. You don't get it. This is important to me." His words felt like a slap, dismissing not just my achievements but the very foundation of our partnership. I thought we were in this together, Jake. When did it become just about you? He looked at me, frustration etched on his face. Since I started getting left behind. You're out there making deals, earning more. And what does that make me? It makes you my husband, I said softly, not my competitor. Jake scoffed, stating abruptly, I need to think. Maybe it's time I look for something else, something bigger. I watched him walk away, the space between us growing wider with each step. It wasn't just about money or success. It was about respect, support, and understanding, things that were becoming harder to find in our conversations. That night, I lay awake, replaying our argument in my mind. We were living under the same roof but walking separate paths, our dreams once shared now pulling us in different directions. I knew something had to change, but I didn't know how, or if it even could. 15 years into our marriage, we had everything we dreamed of. A beautiful home, shiny cars, multiple properties, and bank accounts anyone would envy. But not everything that glitters is gold. Jake's career had stalled, like a car stuck in the mud, wheels spinning but going nowhere. He'd come home late from another liquor-laden evening, frustration spilling over. It's all rigged, Anita, he rant. And I'd sit there, wondering how much longer we could keep pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I remember that night so clearly. The tension between us had been growing for months, but this time, it felt like something was about to snap. I rushed through the front door, my mind still buzzing from back-to-back meetings. My phone was dead, and I hadn't been able to call Jake, but deep down, I knew that wouldn't have made a difference. As I walked into the dimly lit living room, I saw him sitting on the couch, a bottle in his hand, his eyes cold. You're late, he said flatly, the accusation clear in his voice. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words caught in my throat. I had rehearsed an apology, something about work running late and my phone dying, but seeing him like that, waiting, simmering in his anger, I knew no excuse would make things better. His disappointment was palpable, and the gap between us felt wider than ever. I had meetings back to back, Jake. I couldn't even charge my phone, I began, hoping to diffuse the tension. Meetings. Always meetings, he interrupted, his voice low and bitter. You seem to have time for everything and everyone else but me. I sighed, feeling the familiar weight of our unspoken frustrations. I'm doing my best, Jake. My job is demanding. You know that. He scoffed, taking another swig from the bottle. Yeah, I know. You're always busy saving the world, aren't you? Too busy to even let me know you'll be late. I bit back my retort, knowing it would only fan the flames. I'm sorry, I said softly, hoping that would ease the tension, but his eyes flashed with something darker. Sorry doesn't cut it, Anita, he snapped, setting the bottle down hard on the coffee table. You're not here, not really. Every day you're off chasing your next big win, and I'm just here, waiting. His words cut deep. That's not fair, Jake. You know I'm working hard for us, for our future. Is that what you tell yourself? He shook his head, his frustration boiling over. Because it feels more like you're working for yourself, for your career. You don't even see me anymore. You don't care. Of course I care, I said, my voice rising with the hurt and anger I'd been holding in. But I can't put everything on hold just because you're struggling with your job. His jaw tightened. This isn't about my job, it's about us. You're leaving me behind, Anita. And every time you succeed, it feels like I'm failing. That's not true, I protested, but the look in his eyes told me it didn't matter. He had already made up his mind. Jake stood up, towering over me as he looked down. Maybe it is true. Maybe we've just grown too far apart. I stood there, staring up at him, feeling the weight of his words settle between us like an unbridgeable chasm. I never wanted it to be like this, I whispered, but he was already turning away. Neither did I, he muttered, walking out of the room and leaving me alone with the echo of everything we'd once promised each other. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew something had to change. The career I had worked so hard for was no longer the thing I was most afraid of losing. It was Jake, our marriage, and yet I didn't know how to fix it. Not this time. I'm sorry, Jake. The meeting ran over and my phone died. I didn't get a chance to call. I dropped my keys into the bowl by the door, my voice weary from the long day. Jake was sitting on the couch, a half-empty bottle by his side. His eyes were sharp, narrowing as he shot me a look that chilled me to the bone. Meeting, huh? He muttered bitterly. Or should I say your little party with the bosses? I blinked, taken aback. What are you talking about? It was just a regular business meeting, Jake. Sure, he scoffed, tipping the bottle back for another drink. It's all those late nights with them that got you where you are. Not your talent, just cozying up to the right people. The heat rose in my cheeks, a mix of anger and disbelief twisting in my gut. You seriously think I got promoted by, what? Sleeping around? He let out a harsh, humorless laugh that rattled through the room. Come on, Anita. It's obvious. Why else would they promote you, a woman, over everyone else? His words hit me like a slap across the face. My hands trembled, but I clenched them into fists to keep steady. I earned my position, Jake, through hard work and talent. It's disgusting that you think so little of me. Jake stood up abruptly, swaying slightly as the alcohol took hold. You're never here, Anita. Always working, leaving me alone. And we don't even have kids, because you're too busy chasing your career. I felt the sting of his accusation deep in my chest. We agreed not to have kids right now. I shot back, my voice quivering with hurt. Don't blame me for that, and my career isn't an excuse for your unhappiness or failures, Jake. His face twisted with resentment as he stepped closer, his voice rising. My failures? No, Anita. They're because I married someone who cares more about her job than her husband. You've ruined everything. I swallowed hard, fighting to keep my voice calm. Jake, this isn't us. We're both upset. Maybe we should talk about this in the morning when you're sober. He shook his head, grabbing his keys from the table. No, I'm done. I need to be alone. Jake, wait, I pleaded, but he was already halfway out the door. The slam echoed through the house like a thunderclap. I tried calling him, again and again, but it went straight to voicemail every time. Alone in the house, I wandered aimlessly from room to room, each one haunted by the memories of earlier, happier times. Sleep refused to come. I curled up on the cold, empty couch, his accusations replaying in my mind, each word cutting deeper than the last. The next morning, I dragged myself to work, exhausted and emotionally raw. My eyes were red from a sleepless night, my mind swirling with the echoes of our argument. I forced a smile where needed, moving through the day on a hubbillet, even as my heart felt like it was crumbling. Mid-morning, my boss called me into his office. I straightened my blazer, wiped away the last traces of tears, and did my best to compose myself. Anita, I've got something that might interest you, he said with a bright tone that felt out of place against the storm in my heart. How would you like to head our new project in Milan? It's a big opportunity, international exposure, leading a team. I thought of you immediately. Milan, Italy. It was everything I had dreamed of. One of those promises I had made to myself long ago, a place I had vowed I'd see someday. Under any other circumstances, I would have leaped at the opportunity without hesitation. I mustered a smile, forcing it to the surface. That sounds incredible, sir. It's actually been a dream of mine to work in Milan. Fantastic. I knew you'd be excited. Think it over and let me know your decision soon. I nodded and left his office, but as I stepped into the hallway, a weight settled over me. The excitement I should have felt was dulled by the ache in my chest. When I got home that evening, the silence was deafening. Jake's absence loomed larger than the empty couch. The thought of going to Milan, of seizing the stream, tugged at me, but so did the fear that if I left now, I might lose Jake for good. I stood there, keys still in hand, staring at the space where he should have been, and for the first time in a long while, I wondered, could I have both my dream and him? Or had I already lost him along the way? I found Jake sitting at the kitchen table, sober but somber. The air between us was thick with unspoken words. I hesitated in the doorway, then decided to break the silence. Jake, we need to talk. I was offered a major project today. It's in Milan. I began carefully, watching his reaction. His face hardened as he looked up. Milan, huh? And what? You're just going to go? It's a big deal for my career, Jake. It could change everything for us. For me. I want to take it. I tried to keep my voice steady to sound assertive. For us, he scoffed, his voice rising with bitterness. There's no us in this, Anita. It's always about you and your career. His words sliced through the quiet of the kitchen. I took a step closer. I'm still the same person, Jake. I'm still your wife. Why can't you see this as something good for both of us? I pleaded, hoping for a glimpse of understanding. He shook his head, his voice cold. There is no both of us if you choose Milan. It's me or the job, Anita. Decide. His ultimatum hung in the air like a cold, heavy weight. "Why do you always make me choose, Jake?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why can't you be happy for me?" "Because I need to know where I stand," he shouted, his face red with anger. "Either you're with me, or you're living your dream without me." I took a deep breath, feeling my heart break even as my mind became clear. "I choose Milan. I have to do this, not just for my career, but for myself." Jake stood abruptly, his chair scraping across the floor. He stormed off to the bedroom, returning moments later with a stack of papers, divorce papers. He slammed them down on the table, meeting my eyes with a cold finality. "Then this is it. If you go, we're done." I stared at the papers, then back at him. My heart sank, but something inside me hardened. I couldn't give up my dreams, not even for him. The following week was a blur of packing and preparations. I signed the papers, packed my bags, and before I knew it, I was on a plane to Milan. The city was everything I had dreamed of: beautiful, vibrant, full of possibilities. I appeared on TV, discussing the project, my face a mask of professionalism, hiding the turmoil inside. Despite the excitement, my thoughts often drifted back to Jake and the possibility of fixing things. But each time I picked up my phone to call, I remembered his ultimatum, and my resolve only strengthened. 2 weeks later, I stepped back into the house, everything feeling surreal. And there he was, Jake, sitting on the sofa as if nothing had changed. "Anita, you're back. Come here," he said, rising from the couch with open arms, a forced smile plastered across his face. I approached but kept my distance, the memory of his ultimatums too fresh. "Jake, we can't just pretend nothing happened. You gave me an ultimatum, me or the job." He waved a hand dismissively, his voice light. "Oh, that. I was just stressed. But I've had time to think, and I'm willing to start over. I'm ready to forgive you, if you agree to make some changes." My eyebrows shot up. "Forgive me? For what exactly?" He sighed, his expression hardening slightly. "You know, quit your job, focus on us. If you just listen and do as I say, we could go back to how things were." It hit me then. How absurd, how manipulative his words were. A mix of anger and relief washed over me. Anger at his audacity, and relief that I was finally seeing it for what it was. "You can't be serious, Jake," I said, my voice steady. "You're asking me to give up everything I've worked for. You know I can't do that." He let out a cold, tight laugh. "It was worth a shot. I thought you'd see sense, but I guess I was wrong." I reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce papers, the ones he had thrown at me before I left. "I signed these, Jake. I thought you were serious about the divorce. Seems I was right." His smile faltered as he snatched the papers from my hand. "This was just a joke, Anita. Can't you take a joke?" I stared at him, incredulous. "A joke? Threatening divorce was a joke? You're unbelievable." His face turned red, his voice rising again. "You're making a huge mistake, Anita. You'll regret this. I won't let you just walk away and ruin everything." "I'm not ruining anything," I said firmly. "I'm saving myself. You've made it clear where I stand with you, and it's time for me to move on." He stood over me, towering, his voice venomous. "Fine. But you're not taking anything from here. This is my house, my things. You leave with nothing. I'll make sure everyone knows how you really got to the top. I'll destroy you." I met his glare with calm resolve. "Try it, Jake, and it'll backfire." I remained calm, though my heart pounded beneath the surface. "I've done nothing wrong, Jake. My conscience is clear." With that, I made my way to the bedroom, packing a suitcase with essentials, a few clothes, my design portfolios, and personal documents. The rest didn't matter. Things could be replaced. Peace of mind and self-respect couldn't. The next morning, I headed straight to my lawyer's office, emotions swirling in my chest. Mr. Carter sat at his desk, glasses perched on the tip of his nose as he reviewed some papers. When I entered, he glanced up, his expression serious. "Anita, good to see you. Please have a seat. Tell me everything." I took a deep breath and started recounting the events, the fights, Jake's ultimatums, and the threats he'd made. He said he'd ruin me, Mr. Carter. Make sure I wouldn't get a penny and destroy my reputation. My voice was steady, but inside, I felt anything but. Mr. Carter's brow furrowed as he took notes, nodding thoughtfully. "We'll need to take this seriously, Anita. Have you thought about hiring a private investigator? Something from his personal life or business dealings could work in our favor." A bitter chuckle escaped me, surprising even myself. I'm already ahead of you. I hired one a few months ago when things started falling apart. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder filled with documents and photos. Turns out Jake's been more than just verbally abusive. Mr. Carter opened the folder and began reviewing the contents, flipping through pages with methodical precision. His expression shifted from concern to shock as he absorbed the incriminating details. This is damning. He pointed at one of the photos. He's been accepting bribes to greenlight city projects. Then tapping another image, he continued, and here, caught with his assistant at a very unprofessional event. Yes, I said, a mix of sorrow and vindication welling up inside. They've been more than just coworkers for quite some time. Mr. Carter leaned back, pressing his fingers together thoughtfully. This changes everything. We have a strong case, not just for infidelity, but we may expose him legally. His threats, along with this evidence, could work heavily in your favor. In the tense days leading to the trial, Jake's calls came nonstop, swinging wildly between desperate pleas and venomous insults. Each voicemail, every message, I documented them all. The trial was grueling, but Mr. Carter was relentless. Your Honor, he began, addressing the judge with precision, we present substantial evidence not only of Mr. Thompson's infidelity, but also of illegal activity tied to his role at the Natural Resources Agency. Jake paled as photo after photo, document after document, was entered into evidence, each one unraveling his carefully crafted image. When it was Jake's turn to speak, he tried to dismiss everything. These accusations are baseless. She's just jealous and wants to ruin my career. The judge peered at him over her glasses, unimpressed. Mr. Thompson, the evidence is clear. Can you explain these financial transactions? And the photos? Jake fumbled, his usual charm faltering under the weight of the undeniable truth. I was just doing my job. The photos are out of context. But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming, and the judge saw right through him. Given the infidelity, threats, and illegal activities brought to light, she ruled, I am awarding Mrs. Thompson financial compensation and an equal division of property. With the trial behind me, I threw myself into my work with renewed passion. The freedom felt exhilarating. Before long, my efforts paid off. I was offered the position of creative director, a role I had dreamed of for years. I celebrated at a cozy little bistro downtown with my closest friend, Laura. As we laughed and toasted to the future, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Jake's name flashed across it. The sight no longer caused a flicker of anxiety. Ah, it's Jake, I muttered, showing Laura the screen. Her eyebrows shot up. Are you seriously going to answer that? Curiosity got the better of me. I picked up the call. What do you want, Jake? His voice was shaky, a mix of desperation and forced sincerity. Anita, I've been thinking. I made a huge mistake. Can we talk? Maybe start over? I couldn't help it. I burst into laughter. It wasn't a joyous laugh, but the kind you let out when something is so absurd, you have no other response. Start over? Really, Jake? I said between chuckles. After everything. It's different now. She left me, took the job, the gifts, everything. I've got nothing left, he blurted out, words tumbling in a frantic rush. So let me get this straight, I said, shaking my head. You want to start over because she dumped you and took your job? Jake's voice lowered, thick with desperation. I've changed, Anita. I really have. Even if that's true, Jake, I've moved on. I'm a creative director now, and my life is full and happy without you. There's no place for you in it. Anita, please, he begged. I wish you the best, Jake. Goodbye. I ended the call, blocked his number, and turned off my phone with a sigh of relief. Laura grinned, raising her wine glass. You're really over him, aren't you? Completely, I confirmed, clicking my glass with hers. To new beginnings, and being in charge of your own happiness. The next morning, feeling empowered and craving companionship that asked for nothing but love, I visited the local animal shelter. That's when I saw him, a scruffy older terrier mixed with a few rough edges, much like me. He looked up with soulful eyes, and I knew right away we belonged together. I named him Buddy. He wasn't just a pet, he was a reminder that the best kind of loyalty comes with no conditions. Life was good, real, fulfilling, and finally my own. The storm had passed, and now, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving.